In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create these rounded border buttons here. So let me zoom in here so you can see it clearly. As you can see here, they're nice, rounded, but very minimal. So let's start to look how we can create this rounded button structure. So let's start to look how to add rounded borders to the y-axis labels in Chart.js. So the first thing what we're going to do is we need to go here to chartjsview.com, getting started, to get a border template. And this specific link you can find as well in the description box. Once you're on here, just make sure you copy this chunk of code here. Copy this. If you want to understand this code, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. So then I will paste this in there, cut this out, and put this title in here, save, refresh. Now this works. I want to swap these y-axis and x-axis, and I want to maximize the size of this chart. So I'm going to say here for the size, 80%, save, and then I will scroll down here, and I will say here swap the axis, so we say index axis will be equal to y. So now the y will be the category axis. Alright, so now we have this here, and what I want to do is I want to make sure we have rounded borders here. To do this, I need to create a separate plugin, because by default it doesn't allow. So I'm going to say a comma, and then I'm going to say here plugins, and within the plugins we can say here, let's call this our y rounded buttons or something like that. Copy this, then I'm going to say here constant this equals, and then we're going to say here the ID will be equal to this, and then we're going to put in the drawing time. And before I even do that, I want to make sure we specify here that will be the plugin block. So now we have this here, and what I want next is to start having the drawing time. What is important with the drawing time is when would we like to draw it. So basically we want to make sure that this label text here will be shown on top of the box or the button, as how you can call that. So what we're going to do here, we're going to say here before anything else we will draw these shapes here, these rectangle buttons or rounded buttons shapes. So we're going to say here chart, these are the arguments, and it's the args and the plugin options. But we will not be using these two, we'll only be using this object here, which is basically an object as well. So what I'm going to do now here is constant this equals that, and this is what we call object destructuring, because this is an object. If you don't understand object destructuring, please check in the description box understanding object destructuring for Chartjs. There's a separate video link for that. So I'm going to say here ctx, because I want to draw on the canvas, I want to grab the data, and I want to grab maybe the chart area. Well, I think we don't need this one, but we probably can use the scale x and y. So now we have this here, and what I want to do here now is start drawing the item. So I'm going to say here ctx.save to save all variables above and everything, or default setting as this. And now let's start to draw something. To draw this, we have to work with the lines, and there are basically two ways to draw it. I'm going to use the easiest way. There's another way that's far more complicated, but I'll make maybe a separate video for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw basically a line, and we want to draw not one line, we want to draw 4 lines that are connecting with each other. So I'm going to say the first one, let's say ctx, and then what we're going to do here is begin path, indicating that we're going to create a shape or an element that is independent of anything else. It's a new shape and should not be connected with any other item that we have here, as sometimes some shapes colors can bleed over to our new shape. So that's why we do this, to make sure that it's all cleaned up. So now once we have this, I want to say the following. I'm going to say ctx.line width, because we want to create a border, say 2 pixels. And let's start to draw here now step by step. First thing here, ctx.move to, and our move to, I'm going to say here, this is basically the x and y variable, and what we want to do here is, this is the starting point. If I want to start here, it's basically I want to start somewhere here, or maybe if I just open up the developer tab and click on this element, you can see here we have here this starting point, which is basically 0, and we have here, this would be the ending point, which would be, well, we can find this value in the y scale. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look for the Y scale values. Let's comment this out first, and let's explore the Y scale a bit more deeper. So we say console log the Y scale, save. So once I do that, refresh, open up the developer tab, you can see here we get all this precious information. Let's click on one of those, and you can see here what we have. You can see here left is 0 pixels, which is correct, that's the left side. The right side here is 38, meaning that from this point here to there would be 38 pixels. We can confirm this by drawing a shape, and we'll see that. And what we need to do then is, afterwards, is we're going to start to draw the up and down. For this, luckily we know what's the font size. By default, Chartjs have a font size of 12. So let's start to draw now something here. And we're going to just do some estimates first. So we're going to say here for the X, this would be, we can see 0 for now. And then what we want to do here is we have here the Y, and the Y needs to be positioned basically based on the index here. This index here, we need to get the value of this position. How do we do this? This is a built-in functionality that Chart.js library has. So here, Y get pixel for value, and the value will be right now index 0. Why index 0? Because Monday is the very first element in an array, and an array is a 0-based calculation, so it starts with 0. So that's the first one. Of course, we're not done, because when we say move to, it's just like the starting point, like a pencil. We're going to say we are here now somewhere in this point, probably 0, and then probably here in the center. Now what we want to do is we want to move, let's say we move to the right. So then we're going to say here ctx.line2. So that's the starting point of drawing the line from this point to here. And what we could say is we want to move to the right side. So how do we get that one? Well, what we can do here is, remember here we have this, and I realized I put this on 0, but we could just change this as well to y.left. That's this one here. And then what I want to do here is then y.right to get the right side, comma, and then we just get this same position. So basically we are only moving on a horizontal level. And let me just convert this into left, because left is 0 as well. Once we got this, I'm going to say ctx.stroke to draw the line. If I save this, refresh, there you are. You can see here this works quite nicely, but we have here maybe too much. We want to make sure we are covering basically this item only. Plus, look at it. We are from here, we need to go up here. So let's start to move it up, and let's make first a rectangle. So what we're going to do here is, instead of this left and right, I want to stay here still on the left side. But what I want to do here, first of all, is I feel like this here would be maybe too much. I want to have at least 2 or 3 pixels away from the corner. And later on I will explain why. Well, basically we have this here, but I will explain as well why. Let's say 1 pixel to the very, move 1 pixel to the right. So if I save this, refresh, and there we are, and I noticed that it's not drawing. Am I missing something? Console log. Alright, interesting. Of course, sorry. The reason why it doesn't work, of course, is because we're now exactly on the same location. So it doesn't draw anything, it doesn't move anywhere. So what I want to do here now, of course, is I want to go here, but I want to go here, down. So how do we go up and down here? We have this, plus, and then we're going to say here, and let's say here, I'm going to say -9 to move up. And the reason why -9, and I'm going to do here +9. Remember, the font size in default in Chartjs is 12 pixels. So if we're in the center, it's 6 pixels up, 6 pixels down. So if I make a button, I want to go not 6 pixels, but I want to go 9 pixels. So we have a little bit of margin on top and bottom. So we do this. If I save this now, refresh, there we are. Alright, now we have this, and now what I want to do is I want to move from wherever we are. We are now at the bottom. So we just draw from here to there, and now I want to move to the right side. So I'm going to grab this, put that one in here, then I'm going to say here left, we can say here maybe right. For now, I'm going to do right, but later on I want to change that. And let's say here -5 pixels for now. Save, refresh, there we are. You can see here, but we're moving basically against these tick marks. And I don't want to touch the tick marks, I want to just get the width of this one here. So we're going to do that later on as well. So we're going to copy this, next, and then we're going to say here, but we have this line here, and I want to move now to the very top. So we can say here, this should be then -9 to go up, of course. Save, refresh, there we are. So now we have this. What I want to do is I want to close this. How do we close this? Well, very simple. In Canvas, we have another command, because here we have the begin path, and now we can close the path. So we're going to say ctx.close path, and then we do the strokes, basically the drawing of the line. So remember that if you do that before, it will not close it. So that's why if I refresh this now, you can see this here. If I would say, well, I first draw and then close, then we're too late, because then we already draw the shape. So that's very important. Alright, so now we have this save, refresh. We have to make sure later on we get the measurement of this as well. So, well, let's look at how do we get the measurement. For this, what I want to do first is I want to loop through this here. So what I'm going to say here, I'm going to go here down, and then I'm going to create a for loop. And the reason why I'm going to create a for loop here is, well, basically we have so many items, or we could do even, instead of a for loop, we could do even a for each loop. Because let's look at this here. You can see here we have here the amount of ticks that is being shown, as you can see here. So what we could do here maybe is a for each loop for the ticks, and then we can get here even the label as well later on to measure the size. So what I'm going to do here maybe, I will say here y.ticks.for each. That's even better. And then I'm going to say here for every tick I'll give the name of tick, comma, index as well. So we get the index as well. Then of course here like that, and then a arrow function expression, and then cut all of this, put it in here. So we want to make sure that we loop only this area here nicely. So now we did this. What I want to do next is, well, let's save this. Refresh. Of course it doesn't work yet. Why? We need to say here index. So I'm going to grab this, put the index in here, and here, and here. Save, refresh. So now it starts to look slightly better, but not exactly, because we should have it a little bit more narrow. And you can see here the text should be a bit more center. So I'm going to work on that one as well. Well, we could do it here right now. We're going to, you can see here, this here, by the way, I forgot to indicate here, because we swap it. This is now category axis. It doesn't have start at 0, but this one has here. And we need to force it this on start at 0, which is the x axis. Comma, I'm going to go to the y axis as well, because what I want to do, I want to push these labels. Now they're, I guess at the very beginning here or something like at the nearest location. I want to put it in the center. So what I'm going to say here, in the ticks, we're going to pinpoint the ticks, and I'm going to say cross a line. I'm going to say center. If you save this, refresh, you can see here now it starts to move, and we also have like far if you want to have it at the very far end, which is basically this side, like that. But in this case, I don't want that. I think center is quite acceptable. There we are. So now we have this. Let's go up here. We have the shapes here. What I want to do is we can make the border line already. Make it rounded. So I'm going to say a ctx.line join, and this will work only on the stroke element. So this is very important here. So it's a line join, and then I'm going to say here this will be rounded or round. If you do this, what will happen? It will be more rounded, and I hope you're seeing it, and if not, let me zoom in a bit. As you can see here, we have these rounded borders, and what I want to indicate here, because we have the border with a thickness of 2, and this is the reason why I had to do +1 here. If I do 0, and here 0, you will see we are going to clip off just a tiny bit of our border, because the thickness of 2 will expand with 1 pixel basically. That's why if the border by default should always be 1, and then if you make it rounded, it should be 2, but then it will expand. You can see here, this is hardly noticeable as well. It gives like additional pixel here. So this is very important to understand. This is the reason why I'm doing this here. So we can save this, refresh, and let me just go back here and reset this to its original state. There we are. So now what I want to do here is I want to make sure we have the width of this correctly. Because look at the width and the colors. Let's do the colors first. So I'm going to say here ctx.fill style, and the fill style will be What exactly? Well, it is from the data, which is the data object dot data sets. And how do we get the colors? So let me show you. From data, which is the reference of this one here, we go to data sets, and then we can say here index 0, because there's only one data set, and then we get the border color. That's the border color, and you have here the background color. This is here the fill, so this should be the background color. Alright, and then here we want to have here the index, whatever the index will be. And then, well, let me save this. If I save this, refresh, you see nothing happens. Why? I didn't say here fill yet. So I'm going to say here ctx.fill, save, refresh. Now we have it. Next, what I want to do is same with the stroke color, so stroke style, and the stroke style equals basically everything except now we say border color instead of the background. So we say border color, save, refresh. There we are. Well, now we have this here. Final item is to what I would say is it doesn't matter if we hit this here, but I would definitely want to make sure that it's a little bit more aligned here, because we have here too much padding. So what I'm going to do now is to measure basically the width of this text here, because you can see Friday is apparently shorter in text compared to the others. So what I'm going to do in here, and what I notice is we can probably, you see these here, I can just get this out because we have a loop here, so we don't have to reload this multiple times. So we just avoid the strain on this one. All right, and then what I want to do here, ctx, and then not even ctx, I want to say here, let me just do this here above, because we have to do it in the for loop. We're going to say here constant text width, and what I want to do is I want to measure the width of the text of the label. So how do we get the text label? From the data, let's go up here, from data directly to labels, and then index number. So I'm going to say here data dot labels, there we say here index number. And oh, before we even do this, I want to say the command ctx dot measure text, put in the text, and I will say dot width to calculate the exact width of the item. So once we have this, let's copy this. Remember here we had the right side. Now what I want to do is I just want to put in this here, and I want to even remove these numbers, the deduction. So probably we'll just get a match, and then later on we need to add up more. As you can see here, we have this. Maybe we can do it plus 5 or 6 pixels. It should probably work well. So if I do here plus 6, and if I do here as well plus 6, save, refresh, and you can see here now, interesting here, this one is just still a bit too few. Maybe here plus 6, or we can do it in, let me just put in here inner with, let's say here plus 6 as well. Do we get too much? We get slightly a lot. And then what I want to do here maybe is just only plus 2 on the remaining. Save, refresh. Alright, interesting, because I realize, of course, this part here is having a problem. So what we need to do here is just fine tune that one. Let me double check. Alright, so I realized that it will be more tricky, so I will skip that one. So let me explain where the issue most likely is, but I have to really test that one. Is we have here a dynamic width, and then we have here a static starting point, and that will give us, of course, the problem like this here, because it just doesn't understand it properly. But I have to probably find a proper solution for this. So I don't have any solution for this. This will mean that I will not make it dynamic. What I will do is I will make sure it will be from one point to other, but consistent. So what can we do then? I'm just going to do this back here into the y.write. Copy that, put that in here, save that, refresh. Then we have this. Alright, then we can say here the negative, because we want to deduct this. Save, refresh, and then we have still a quite decent acceptable structure. And I might make a separate video for that, but I do believe that this would be quite good. Of course, you can experiment by playing around with this one. This is the issue, because this is static and this would be dynamic, so you have to put that one in here and then figure it out somewhere. But that's a lot of tweaking that I will not do for now. but eventually this is the result we get. So if you enjoyed this video and maybe you want to make this now a button, or well, it is a button, but if you click on it, it should lead you to a link. In that case, I'm going to recommend you this one here, how to create clickable y-axis with links in Chart.js, where you just create links, and then when you click on it, you will go to another specific website or page, which is also quite interesting.